So, guys, welcome back again here in our show, My Story VNP, Very Normal People. And as we have promised you, we always will have new guests in our show where they can share from their experiences and from what they have written or maybe what they have said. And today, or better to say tonight, we have Henrietta Pepper, an author of a bestseller book. So, but she will tell us more about herself. Welcome, Henrietta.
Thank you for having me, author.
It's a
It's a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Yeah, ours. So,
Okay.
so who are you?
Well, I hail from the United States, here in Kentucky,
Okay.
and my professional career has primarily been in marketing and advertising. After graduating from college, I went into the marketing business and worked at several high level advertising agencies in my career, and eventually started my own firm, which is the brand communications firm here in Louisville, Kentucky, where I reside. And I owned and operated that firm for 14 years.
Okay.
Sold that, and was in the process of kind of mapping out my next steps, what was going to be my next journey. And so, in doing that, I began to really reflect on what had brought me to that point in my life. I was 55 at the time. I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree
Wow.
to enable me to teach. So that was also a dream of mine to be able to teach at the university level. And I am doing that now. That's another story. But during that kind of transition time, I had always wanted to write a book, but I wasn't sure what the subject matter might be. But in that reflection period and looking for my next step, I began to journal and write down stories of my past that kind of drove me forward. So that being stories of my faith, stories of my family, which was such a big part of my life, and then friendships. So those are kind of the three pillars, author of the book: faith, family, and friends. So as I began kind of journaling those stories, I began to share those stories with some of
Okay.
my colleagues and some of my in my support group, and they encouraged me. They said, you are really inspiring me to think about my personal story, or you're inspiring me to think about my next journey and my next career. And I think you've really got something here. And so I hired a book coach, actually, and she, along with another kind of ancillary group of authors, really kind of drove me and encouraged me to start formatting this into the book, into a book format. And so that is what we have. It's out of the gates. Um, what inspires us drives us forward, and it is a compilation of short stories around faith, family, and friends. And so, while the stories are really in my voice and told through my lens, it's a very approachable, quick, short read. And hopefully, the goal is to create an environment where people can share their own stories and feel inspired to create their stories, and not only through the book, but through our podcast and through our social media and all of the other platforms that we've set up around the book at the gate.
Yeah, we'll speak about those platform maybe in the end, and also we'll write them down to our video uh,
Sure.
content so people can find you and where they can
Sure.
find more about you
That's the goal.
and
We
your
want
book.
everybody to join the
Yes,
conversation.
yes, exactly, and we would love to do that. And yeah, so now, if I can say, now while you were introducing yourself, you said that people were pushing you to write this book, okay, because you have something
Yeah.
there. Now that you already have written the book, people are reading the book. So, what is the feedback that
Uh,
people give to you
yeah.
now?
Great. great. Part of our platform is we have some formats. We just launched it last month called Sip and Share. And
Hmm.
so whether it's
That's a
a cup of
nice one.
coffee or a glass of wine or whatever your beverage of choice, we invite folks to come on. At this point in time with the pandemic, it's virtual, but we
Mm.
invite them to come together in this platform to give the feedback and share their stories and maybe choose a story out of the book that is really resonating, and we talk about it, and we talk about the way that it's impacted that particular person's lives, and then it becomes a conversation. As I said, I mean, the feedback author has been very inspirational, I guess is the best word. People are really feeling that this is an environment where they can share in a safe environment with others who are not going to judge them. It's not a right or wrong. It's more of a let's talk about this a little deeper. Let's talk
Mhm.
about how we might have handled the situation differently or how we might advise or counsel others on how they could handle something they're facing, good, bad, or ugly. It's
Mhm.
life is not all roses.
Right.
Certainly, we all have our challenges, especially during this pandemic. So the feedback has been very positive, very inspirational. I guess is the best word I can say.
Expression. Yes, yes, and yeah, as people, we need to be inspired rather to. I mean, before we start to do something, and that's correct. I think, we need a lot of people to inspire us, and especially in the days that we are talking about. It's like the pandemic is
Yeah.
everywhere, and nobody even knows. Even the doctors, they don't know. They were not prepared. Now, just think about us. But
Yes,
okay,
and I
yeah.
think part of the book was about
Mhm.
80% written when the pandemic really hit, and so I had the opportunity to go back and really reflect on those stories that I already had completed,
Mhm.
and it almost shed a new light on some of the stories. It really shed a new light, and it actually inspired some new stories that probably wouldn't have been included had it not been for the pandemic. That I have a story in there about awakenings, and I feel like the pandemic has really awakened a lot of folks. Again, good, bad, and ugly. I think people have a new perspective on their lives about what's really important, what is really really a blessing, and really taking not taking those blessings for granted.
Mhm.
And I think people are going to come out of this pandemic with a new refreshed outlook on life. Would you agree?
Yes, yes, yes. That is what I felt myself, by the way. Being
Yeah,
inside for months, and then we had the opportunity to be out, free, no time, no
right,
curfews in the out,
right.
and then it was like, wow. Yes,
Yeah, so
that's.
a part of the book too I failed to mention. At the end of each section,
Mhm.
I have a set of conversation starters.
Okay.
And again, it's almost back to where the essence of the book began with my journaling. It just kind of gives you to take pause and reflect on that section and say, how would I've done things differently? Perhaps how would you address this issue you're having with your friendship?
Mhm.
Or how can I become more spiritual in the
Mhm.
way I go about my life? And
Mhm.
then it actually has some blank pages after each section so that the reader can actually jot those reflections down and
Mhm.
perhaps refer back to the book later when they are going through their journeys and they want to revisit some of those stories or some of those journal entries. So it's kind of like a workbook and a
Workbook.
book
Okay.
and a
Mhm.
journal all in one. So I've had people tell me as they were reading the book, it's not a linear, start to finish book.
Mhm.
It is something you can pick up, read a story here or there, go to a section that maybe you're really identifying with at the
Mhm.
moment, and read those stories, and then come back to it in a couple of days or a month and revisit. So
Okay.
non-linear read,
I see what
very
you mean.
approachable.
Okay. So on the upper top of the book, in the cover, you have a sentence there. Can you please read that for us?
Yes, it's what inspires us, drives us forward. So
Okay.
that is kind of the subhead down below, powerful
Mhm.
stories of faith, family, and friends. So again, it's all about life's journey in within those three pillars, specifically faith, family, and friends, and how, again, from my voice, how those dimensions have
Mhm.
really driven me. But I think the whole genesis of the book is how everyone has their own personal journey
Right.
and how they are driven by their own stories.
So let's talk about those three pillars then. The first one is faith, we said, right? Okay, please
Right,
tell us how do you uh, develop that topic?
right. So my faith has always been fundamental to me. I grew up as a Christian, and uh, my family was heavily involved in our church. So I had those roots, and I expanded on that, becoming an adult. Obviously, I am Episcopalian. If you know what that is, it's
Mhm.
a Roman Catholic Episcopalian, and so we um, are very traditional in a sense with our services and our acts as Christians.
Mhm.
But it has always been a very predominant part of my being, and I practice my faith very seriously.
Okay.
That said,
Mhm.
I am a believer that everyone has their own sense of faith and their own sense of spirituality, and they tend to go about that in their own way. And so the book stories are
Mhm.
around everyone finding their own sense of spirituality and their own sense of true self.
Mhm.
And yes, I have my own journey, but I tell stories of how I have been moved by other people's spiritual journey and how I've had to work
Mhm.
throughout my life to stay true to my spirituality and stay true to myself. And I think that is the most important thing, is to find where you're comfortable, find what moves you, and then by doing that, you're going to move others. It's just going to happen organically
Mhm.
if you are practicing your own personal faith journey or your own spirituality and finding that. That's going to move others.
Yeah, that's I've it reminded me an expression that somebody said, if we just practice the things that we know,
Oh my
our
goodness,
world
right,
will be quite
right.
different, right? So,
And again,
yes.
now more than ever, I don't know about what it's like in other countries,
Mhm.
but in the United States, because of the pandemic, people are not able to gather for worship. They're not able to do practice the way they are accustomed. And so I think it's been difficult. I know I've gone through some difficulty and I really miss that opportunity on a regular basis. So I've had to find other ways
Mhm.
to dig in and practice my faith. And I know that is a barrier for many of us during this pandemic. And
Mhm.
so I feel that and I feel that energy. And so I'm hoping the book helps give people some strength and opportunity to reflect on their faith.
Okay, that was the first one, and yeah, thank you very much. It was very clear. So the second one is the family, right?
Right.
Okay.
Again, I come from a very large and
Large.
strong family, as does my husband. My husband and I have been married for 30 years.
Hmm.
We both come from very large families. So that was always a big part of our lives. I had 12 cousins that lived with her every day. We just had a huge sense of of family and still do. I have four stepchildren, 18 grandchildren, three children, another grandbaby on the way. So we have a very robust, vibrant family. So lots of stories around gatherings, around bonding, around relationships within our families, around parenting, around being a child, being a sibling, uh, good times and bad, how combating those struggles that every family has, dysfunction every family has. No matter how great you are, every family has their difficulties, and I write a lot around those stories that kind of uh, caused us all to step back, take on the situation, but don't let it damage the family forever. So being able to talk through those difficulties, being able to manage those situations. But also, there's a lot of humor in that section of the book, those sections of the book where we're talking about family, because you have to be able to laugh. And we're all going to make mistakes, especially with our family, because that's where we're the most vulnerable, right? And we feel probably safest. So sometimes you take off the mask and you're a little bit more genuine, and sometimes that can have a negative effect because people don't want to hear something, perhaps,
Right.
when you're being very honest and transparent with your family. But I really talk about those stories. Again, a lot of our family is revolved around food and eating and celebrations, and there's a lot about those happenings in the book, which I'm sure all of us have our individual um, reoccurrence around family times together. Again, the pandemic has caused us to have to rethink those traditions, and getting back to those will be joyful. But I think, and I don't know your thoughts on this, I think people are creating new traditions now,
Yes, that's
and
right.
those might again be a little bit more appreciated as we come out of the pandemic.
Okay. So, if you would give any advice to people about the family, how to
Yeah.
keep a healthy family, what will be something that, okay, they will take it to their heart and to practice in their family, with their siblings, dad, mom, and grandmom, granddad, whatever they have. So, what
Yeah.
do you think will be good?
Um, there's a whole section in the book
Mhm.
around uh, love and expression of love. And I have struggled with that over the years. I at the end of the day, I don't think you can say I love you enough. And I feel like some people have been a little bit reserved and maybe feel like it's overkill if you say I love you a couple of times to your kids or your spouse or your grandma. And I, I have a story about my grandmother where I actually wrote her a letter in the book, and
Mhm.
just telling her how much I loved her and how instrumental she was in my life, even though we were very, very close. But to answer your question, I guess my advice would be don't hesitate to express your feelings for your family. Um, and if you're having a problem, rather than letting it just fester, get it out there, talk it out, and don't, because life is so short. And if
Right.
you are holding on to ill feelings, and you're not expressing it and not resolving it, or at least trying to resolve, it's just a waste of time. So I guess just being transparent and being honest about your feelings
Okay.
as much as you can, because you don't want to leave this world with regrets.
Right. Thank you. It was very
Yeah.
nice. Also, the third part is friends, right? So we start from inside, and then we take it out to the small circle, let's say the family, and then we go to a bigger circle, right?
Right, right.
Friends.
And I think some of the same uh, concepts around your family relationships apply to friendships.
Hmm.
And I have a couple of stories in there about friendships taking time and taking effort. They're just like a family relationship. You have to
Hmm.
work at a friendship. You can't just put it to the side and then recoup it 3 months later. You have to take the time to nurture it,
Right.
cultivate it, work through the issues. You can't just go have a whole story around going ghost. There's a saying in the States, you go ghost, you just disappear for a while, and then you
There you
think that that friend is going to pick back up the friendship. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a two-way street. So I talk a lot about the value of friendships in your life and in my life, and how I've really taken the effort, especially during this pandemic, to be proactive in nurturing those important friendships that I have, and maybe some that I have not been very good at holding up my end of the friendship. So again, no better time than now to rekindle some of those important friendships in your life, or even better, start some new friendships of people that you wanted to get to know, but maybe didn't take the time to do it. Um, I think that's going to be an outcome of the COVID, is people not taking that for granted and really wanting to reel in their support system of friends.
And I think also with the pandemic time now, at least if you call somebody a friend, you cannot say that, oh, I'm busy, because you're not busy. You are home, so you
Exactly.
cannot escape that anymore.
Exactly.
If you have somebody, you call him or her a friend, you cannot avoid him anymore. It's like, so at least you
Yes.
know who is your real friend in one sense. So it'll give you time.
Well, and Arthur, that's a great point, and I think too, now's the time to be, again, transparent and honest with yourself. If you're not engaged in that friendship, or for whatever reason,
Mhm.
you owe it to that person to be honest about, maybe they hurt your feelings, maybe they, in a sense, did something you felt was
Misunderstanding.
inappropriate.
Mm.
But don't let that just sit. Get that out there and talk about. I'm by no means a therapist or anything like that. I'm speaking to what I would have gone through and what
Mhm.
my personal experience and journey has been on those three pillars. I'm not preaching. I'm just.
Yeah, I see what
It's
you mean.
been therapeutic though in
At
writing
least
the
for.
book to really get those feelings down on
Mm.
paper. And again, I'm hoping that others will share in those experiences and gain value from it.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's really good. Sometimes we think that, oh, it's just us, but that, at least for you, it has been working. What you have said and what you have shared with others, because others pushed you to write the book in one sense. So they like it
Yeah,
so much. They were encouraged. They were inspired. So they say, okay, please, why not? Yeah, and that's yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It, it's a pleasure to have people like you to talk and to discuss their experiences, but because we cannot talk for a lot of things in our but still, it's just the beginning. That is what I say to all our guests. So we can talk again, and we're going to have also panels of people to discuss on a certain subject, and you'll be more than welcome to join us. I'll
oh,
let
I
you
love
know about
that.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back to the feedback you asked about.
Hmm.
I think that one of the wonderful outcomes of this, I've had a lot of one-to-one conversations
Hmm.
about the stories, but the most vibrant have been the group discussions. So almost like a virtual book club, if you will, or as you suggested, we've had a couple of the sip and share discussion forums,
Hmm.
and that's where it really gets fun and interesting, is those group discussions. So I'm glad you're doing that. That'll be a fun experience.
Yes, I'm how to say it, I'm a fan of those things. I love them.
Yeah.
So that's why
One of the
also we
things
have
we
this.
didn't discuss, author, was the backdrop of the book is the state of Kentucky, and we are big into thoroughbred racing and horse farms and the
Mhm.
beautiful ambiance of Kentucky, the bluegrass state. And so, I want to say to your audience, if you're interested in that landscape. and interested in that. I don't want to call it industry, that sector. It's its own beautiful, from as I said, the farms, the families that have been in that for generations, the beautiful race tracks and facilities, the trainers and the jockeys. And so there's a lot of backdrop to the stories around Kentucky and all of that it brings. And actually, the person who wrote my foreword, Donna Barton Brothers, is a famous commentator on NBC Sports here in the States, and also was a former top jockey in her day. She was the second most winning jockey in her time, female jockey in the world. So I'm very honored to have had her write my foreword. So again, there's a lot of analogies woven through the stories around Kentucky and the South here in the States, some of the traditions, and a lot of that spirit of the thoroughbred sector. And so I think for those who enjoy that, you're going to appreciate how we've kind of woven that through the book.
Okay, I think down to the video you have to share also the hotels or the host when people can come now. So that's a good advertisement. Okay, before we go to the end, if you want to add something else, maybe you think it's worthy to share it, because I have one last question which I like to ask our guest, which is, what is your motto in life? So, but if you, what is your motto? Something that
My
drives,
motto?
yeah, motto. Yeah, sorry, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my goodness, that's a great one. My motto in life, I live life to the fullest. I'm, I'm 57 now, and that seems hard to believe.
yeah, it is.
I'm on the last chapter, or the last turn, I think, or at least halfway through. So I just think you have to. For me, it's been an awakening, the COVID, and I have made a promise to myself to just not take anything for granted. Realize your blessings, have more gratitude in your life, and just live life, because you only get one shot at it. One shot.
Right.
So live life to the fullest.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So, if you can tell to our audience where they can find you, so
We are on the best way the audience can find us is probably the website
okay,
which we've set up for the book.
okay,
It is outofthegatebook.com.
okay,
And the website can provide you with a little backdrop of the stories, so you get a little bit of a read on the stories. It also lists all of our social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn.
okay,
We also have podcasts on Spotify, on Apple, all of the major viewing platforms for
platforms.
podcasts. So we have about 8 podcasts out there right now. So feel free to peruse those. You get a little bit of a flavor. Like you, author, we bring on guests and we talk about certain stories and certain topics with the book. So the podcasts are on the website, the listing of the book, where to purchase the book. Your best option is probably Amazon, but we are also on other online booksellers such as Barnes and Nobles, etc. So we have a Kindle version, we have a hardback version, we have a paperback version. So you're welcome to go on Amazon and check it out.
Okay, well, personally, I will do. So, so guys, as you saw, it was so good. Please, we'll keep on to have these kind of stories with wonderful people. Just if you want to let's say, to spread the word to your friends, just subscribe and just send the link to them so more people can hear about our stories, and especially for Henrietta's stories, the best seller author. Thank you very much again, and we hope to see you again, right?
Thank you, Austin. Really
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay. Goodbye.